Yeah, while we're getting the slide set up, I want to thank Joni, the Finnish Society of Automation, Microsoft, for inviting me to talk about one of my favorite topics. It's the module type package, emerging international standard, and I'm going to talk about its relevance in providing modular automation and make a connection to the business case, to the products we sell, how we make the products we sell, the plants we design, and ultimately the automation that supports all of the above. To give a backdrop, when I first joined the company 25 years ago, I'll have a picture of this, but we would make our medicines in these very big stainless steel reactors. They were rigid, and we designed a single plant for a single product. And we would have automation systems that would run this plant. The problem is, we have patent expiry, and then after the product goes off patent, we have no use for the plant anymore. And so, the investment eventually just has to be written off. In the newer model, the medicines we make now are now far more personalized and targeted. So we have a cancer medicine that is for a certain patient population. If your cancer cells express certain proteins, you are eligible for our medicine. So in the past, again, a pill for every person on the planet, but in the future, the medicines can be more effective by being targeted to smaller populations. And that's driving a different type of factory. And ultimately, if you continue to draw out the whole, where this is all going, it's personalized medicine, where we'll make a medicine just targeted to an individual. And right now we have in clinical trials a medicine where we harvest through biopsy a patient's cancer cells, and then we will target a medicine that will attack the proteins. It'll recognize a cancer cell much better, and then this medicine will destroy the cancer cell. So ultimately, there's already emerging markets where we take samples from the individual who has the cancer, and then those cancer cells can be targeted with the medicine. So we'll continue on from where I left off with the teaser. I think Joni was trying to test if I would be able to do the presentation without slides. Fortunately, he just gave me just a short test, and he gave me back the pictures. So where I left off, we talked about the pharmaceutical manufacturing from 25 years ago, and you can see examples of very big stainless steel tanks. And this was the age of the pill, a pill for every person on the planet. So very big volumes, stainless steel tanks, one plant, one product. And so that's what it looked like. But as I spoke about before lunch, the changing nature of the medicines, moving towards smaller patient populations, smaller batches, eventually, single personalized medicine, one medicine tailored to the individual. So the whole trend in the industry is much smaller batches. So our new plants look more like this. Single unit operations, so each piece of equipment performs an operation like a bioreactor, like filtration, like viral inactivation, chromatography. You can get these skids, you could have them in place with feet, but when they arrive, they typically come with wheels. And so they're also mobile modular units that stitched together can do the manufacturing production, much smaller facility. You'll see the people are gowned. So if you have special requirements around making sure you have a clean environment, you want to minimize the space that you're treating with clean air and trying to keep particles out. And so the trend also is much smaller facilities with smaller equipment, and again, tailored towards a smaller patient population than in the past. So what are the advantages of modular plant design? It's driven by business considerations that we're trying to transform. And I have a quote from our Vice President of Engineering, who has declared that all our future plants that we build, we want to spend 40% less capital, and we want 80% of all the engineering design work done off-site, preferably before we even decide to build the plants. So again, it's forcing us to use equipment that can be bought off the shelf, pre-manufactured by an equipment manufacturer. You'll hear names like Sartorius and Merck Millipore and Cytiva. These are the companies that supply those types of equipment that I showed in the previous slide. And you can buy them off the shelf, pre-engineered. And the advantage of the modular plant design, a friend from Siemens provided this slide, is as opposed to the traditional process plant engineering of decades ago, where you made an investment decision, okay, we're going to build this plant, and then we're going to custom design all the equipment, and we're going to get an engineering contractor and build up this equipment. That takes a lot longer time than in this new world of module engineering, where we buy modules and integrate the modules. And 80% of the work is done off-site, and much of it is embedded before you even start the project. It's our equipment suppliers have already done the work of module engineering, whereas in the past we would custom design many of our own pieces of equipment. But ultimately, it results in a huge time savings for your plant to get online. And also, in a very competitive, globalized world, our company will have new medicines, but typically several other companies have a very similar molecule or a very similar medicine, and whoever gets to market first gets the lion's share of the revenue of the product. So this new way of designing plants to drive time savings is force us to move away from traditional plant design into this modular plant design. And the advantages, I've talked about some, but it allows flexibility. You saw the equipment can come on wheels, and we can reconfigure and restack equipment depending on the product we want to make. We save a lot of money in the construction because it's a compact, prefabricated design. And the modular equipment, this is important, can be reused for new products when assembled as a platform. And I have a platform slide earlier. Whereas those stainless steel tanks I showed before, that's a fixed plant that can only be used really for one, maybe two products. The whole idea of modular plant design, the time savings, the pre-engineered work to get to market faster. And also, this modular design also scales very well with new product introductions. So not all our products meet our marketing projections. And typically, sometimes our marketers think we're going to sell this much. But initially, we might only sell small amounts. We can then copy those plants and build another set of modules just like that and scale up with market demand so you don't overinvest capacity too early in the process, or in some cases where the market demand never materializes and you're stuck with a plant that you spent all this money but maybe only operating at 15%. So all the reasons for modular plant design. I'll quickly move through. So yeah, problem statement. We want to design flexible facilities, but with flexible facilities, it's okay if the process and equipment in the picture are flexible, but the automation needs to match that same flexibility in designing a facility of the future. So we designed platforms for manufacturing based on these pieces of equipment, and you see examples of bioreactors, virus inactivation skids, chromatography skids. They can be swapped in and out depending on the product we're making. Sometimes vendor A provides us with the downstream purification skid. For another product, we might just want to substitute in vendor B, but we still preserve the rest of the line. So in this way, we build one platform facility, but it can accommodate many products so long as we're able to swap in unit operations depending on the product we're trying to make. And that's the idea of the platform manufacturing. And we've proven out the idea that this works during the COVID pandemic. So during those terrible years, 2020, 2021, we developed 4 different candidate vaccines for the coronavirus, and 1 biologic that was used to treat those who were infected with COVID. And in 1 calendar year, we were able to run it in a single facility, all these different products, and using the platform line, we could preserve 80 to 90% of the equipment could be used in place, but just swap out certain pieces depending on the medicine we wanted to make. Ultimately, none of these medicines panned out or proved they were effective, but not as effective as the messenger RNA vaccines that otherwise came out. But for our company, it proved the idea that flexible manufacturing, using a platform, the ability to swap in and out equipment was going to be an idea that would be the entire future of how we build out plants. What this demonstration did show also, though, we did not have the ability to have a modular plug and play with the data, the automation, and the control. So the equipment was being swapped in and out, but we still have isolated islands of PLCs. Each of those unit operations comes with its own intelligent controller designed by the equipment vendor, and they pour a lot of money and time and debug the code, so it works just like they intend. But it's the interoperability we needed with a supervisory layer. In the MTP terminology, it's the POL, or process orchestration layer, that governs all the plants and runs all the individual pieces of equipment. So this is what led us, modular plant design led us to the need for modular automation, and we found a really good solution through this emerging standard, the module type package, which this year Profinet International is going to take on and be a sponsor for that standard. So the principles of plug and play for automation equipment, PLC's controller, relies on the fact that you have a supervisory control system. And in the pharmaceutical industry, we use Emerson Delta V as a very popular system used as supervisory control, but ABB, Siemens, they all offer very similar systems. And we want to use that system to talk to and control these unit operations that are being swapped in and out. And the way we do that is to talk to them via standardized data models, typically embedded in a modeling language or described as in standards like MTP, but also transmitted over OPC UA on top of Ethernet. And I'll just give kind of a brief history of the module type package standard. It's a vendor neutral modeling description, and it allows an exchange of data between a supervisory control system layer, termed the POL, process orchestration layer, talking down to a process equipment assembly layer, PEA. So those unit operations, the bioreactors, the filtration skids, those represent the process equipment assembly layer. And it allows an exchange of information, which including an ISA 88 state machine model, very important, as well as a provisioning of services expressed as software as part of the equipment that can be called upon by the supervisory POL layer. Just running through a brief history, Namor came up with the recommendation for this idea of the module type package standard back in 2013, evolved into another association, ZVEI, developing a white paper. And then the guidance was further refined until it's now approaching, they approached the Profinet International Standards Body to sponsor this module type package standard. It's, they're pursuing an IEC number 63280. And I got the slide from Matthias Marmeyer from Siemens, and just following the LinkedIn threads, Profinet International, very soon there will be this release, this MTP 2.0, and Yoni has some information on, after this talk on how folks can sign up for a webinar on the introduction of the MTP 2.0. So approaching an international standard, and with the release of MTP 2.0 is imminent. Okay, so I talk about one of the really great features of the module type package is the establishment of an ISA 88 compliant state machine. So a POL can run machines in the PEA layer like a state machine. Very important in production of all types of things beyond just pharmaceuticals. The MTP also provides for software services mapped to the ISA 88 procedural control model. So the ISA standard is shown in the blue there. There's a physical model of how it describes pieces of equipment in a manufacturing plant. It talks about a procedural control model built up from phases, operations, unit procedures, and we use delta V to run these type recipes via the S88 procedural control model. And then MTP has a set of guidelines, rules for developing software services aligned with each of those ISA 88 procedural control models. And this allows, I'll take an example of a bioreactor. The bioreactor has a number of services that can be run on it. You can inflate a single-use bag, you can agitate the contents, you can feed material in there. Through the MTP, we abstract out those physical actions into software actions. Okay, so now consider it kind of like equipment as a service, abstracted with these software services to be called by the process orchestration layer. It simplifies the logic between supervisory POL and PEA equipment, such that at the POL level, we can just call for services. I want to inflate a bag. I want to agitate. Just very simple service calls now, as opposed to the complex spaghetti logic of the past before we had MTP coordinating control between POL and PEA layer. So the example we use, I have an emerging use case from my company, and we're just starting to build out these MTP boxes, but it's associated with, again, a bioreactor and some ancillary equipment that goes with the bioreactor to supercharge the yields we have. So typically in a bioreactor, we will grow cells. The cells will host some kind of therapeutic protein or a monoclonal antibody to treat all kinds of conditions. And we just want to grow lots and lots of cells in this compact manufacturing facility. And so we have ancillary equipment to help with the boost in productivity. We have pumps, we have scales that typically talk RS-232, 485, Ethernet IP, Modbus TCP, the whole alphabet soup of protocols. And then we have more standard traditional I/O that is 4 to 20 milliamp or digital. And so represented by flow sensors, represented by pressure or temperature. And this peripheral equipment shown here needs to be attached to and communicate to the POL, which is represented by delta V. And the delta V will have the ability to call services, common functions that are used, provided by signals by these pieces of equipment. So things like weight control, flow control, pressure control. And the way we want to communicate is rather than individual wires from each of these systems into a delta V, but rather create a sub-PEA layer of equipment ganged together that just communicates via one wire to the POL, shown here in this diagram. So the traditional way of tying in all that I/O, you see the sensors and the pumps and the scales, is to run all these wires back to a single I/O cabinet. Now remember, we talked about very small, compact spaces. And this is where we see a big advantage for MTP running a single Ethernet wire as opposed to all the different wires from the sensor, and then combining all these pieces of equipment into a single process equipment assembly that then talks to the delta V control system with MTP, OPC UA providing the tag mapping, and then delta V then being able to communicate and call out services via the MTP protocol, things like the weight control, the flow control, the pressure control. And so the MTP is encapsulated in these project boxes. We do have a PLC in those project boxes that does the translation of the I/O back, and then includes the PEA software that talks to the delta V, the POL. And comparing current versus future state, what the boxes can provide is the ability to have much more density of I/O, both the serial communication and the traditional 4 to 20 milliamp I/O. We can add many more pieces of equipment, and we shrink the size of the box. We simplify the management of the wire, and this allows us to achieve this very high productivity yield bioreactor process to make the medicines. And that brings us to the end of the talk. Again, what I've hoped to try to communicate, I start with a business problem, the personalized medicine, the need for a single plant to produce many, many different medicines, leading us to a modular plant design with modular equipment that we swap in and out. But if you need to swap in and out of the equipment, what happens to the data, the automation control? Well, this is where the MTP comes in to allow us that same plug and play ability similar with the equipment. Now the control and the automation flows with it. And that brings us to OPC and MTP, which, MTP is an emerging standard built on other established standards like Ethernet, OPC UA, ISA 88. And this entire stack allows us now to do this modular plug and play automation for our industry.